my topic is why do teens consume social media? So my personal story, when I was in 5th grade, I made a Facebook just because everyone else had made one, and I was like, why not? People are telling me to. And at that time, it was more of a means of communication because, well, at least in my school, no one really had cell phones. So it was a good way for us to all communicate after school and just post funny things. But as over the years, I found myself spending more time on social media, and I think it's because of smartphones, because around that time, smartphones were coming out. So I'm pretty sure that had a big impact. And based on my experience, that made me wonder, well, why do teens spend so much time on social media? And it also made me wonder, does it affect teen self-esteem, or does it affect their mental and emotional state, since we spend about 9 hours on social media a day? And 75% of teens use social media, which is pretty much everyone, which is another reason why I want to study. So for how it's addicting, so dopamine is a chemical in the brain which is responsible for us wanting to seek things out, and the opioid system is the rewarding part. So basically the dopamine and the opioid system, there are feel-goods, and they're chemicals released in the brain, and how it relates to social media. So once we go on social media, or the first time we see something that makes us happy, or something that makes us laugh, or we get a positive comment, the dopamine, along with the opioid system, is released in our brain, and our brain rewards us for it, and we all like rewards, so that's why we continually get stuck in this loop of going on social media, because our brain's rewarding us for it. And for how does it affect teens' mental and emotional state? So in 1986, there were about 23,000 counseling sessions, and in 2014 to 15, there were about 286,000. So over 30 years, that's an increase. It's increased by 10 times. And 30 years ago, teens were reported worrying about sexual abuse, family problems, or school. But now teens reported worrying more about school or cyberbullying or how they're perceived on social media. And so from that, I concluded that social media must have some kind of effect on teens' mental and emotional state. If they're going to counseling for, being cyberbullied or having body image issues. So a study showed that self-consciousness and peer validation are at a height because as teens, our brains are still developing, and we're still developing physically and emotionally. And so saying that social media can have a large influence on our self-esteem because, well, on social media and just media in general, we see these celebrities or just these famous figures that look perfect, but they spend so much money on Photoshop, or there are even apps like Facetune, and then you can see on the left, you can see all her flaws or whatever, and then on the right, you can see her face looks perfect. So as teens, when we see these people, even though we might acknowledge and we might know that they are using Photoshop or apps like Facetune, we put it on the back burner basically, and we don't immediately recognize it. And from that, I've concluded that social media must also have some kind of effect on teens' self-esteem. Because there are also 80% of teens have been on diets already by the age of 10, and along with that statistic in my research, I concluded that social media must affect teens' self-esteem. And there was this social media experiment specifically for Facebook. It's called 99 Days of Freedom, where people were supposed to not use Facebook for 99 days, but obviously not everyone. So the 99 Days of Freedom, so basically, you weren't supposed to use Facebook for 99 days, but not everyone made it. And for the people who weren't able to make it the full 99 days, the people who created the experiment asked them, why didn't you make it through the 99 days? And one of the main factors was your mood. So the less happy people were with their life or with their work or just anything in general, the more likely they were to go on Facebook. And that led me to my solution, which was people or teens should find things that make them happier, because then they won't it won't affect their self-esteem or it won't affect their mental and emotional state. But also saying that, I think I should acknowledge like the positive side of social media and media in general, because I don't know, I felt like my research and paper made social media seem so negative, but social media has started movements, and like you can communicate with people that you might not be able to see every day, or you might not be able to see at all. And also it's helped started raise funds for medical organizations. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for having us.